Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Asanda Ndlovu, and I stand before you with humility and duty as the chairperson of the preparatory task team for this national dialogue. For months, our team has not worked to prepare a stage, but to prepare a nation. This is not another conference nor a ceremonial gathering. It's an invitation for the farmer in Matafin, the mine worker in Emalahleni, the student in Memelodi, and the entrepreneur in Bombela to sit at the same table and declare, this is a South Africa we want. This is a South Africa we will build. We meet because the urgency of our times demands it. We cannot ignore the child who goes to bed hungry, the woman who walks in fear in their own street, the graduate with dreams deferred, or the communities fractured by mistrust. These realities cry out to us. And today, we answer, not with despair, but with determination. Yes, there are criticisms. Some say this dialogue is too costly. Others say it risks being elitist, rushed, or symbolic with no substance. These concerns are valid. I hear them. We must hear them, and we must face them honestly. And that is why we commit to full budget transparency, to cutting unnecessary cost, and to widening the table, bringing in youth, rural voices, and excluded foundations. As Nelson Mandela reminded us, action without vision is only passing time. We will not let this be another report gathering dust. We will listen, act, and remain accountable. And so, this dialogue begins. Today, we'll hear from 4 voices that represent the heart of our nation's challenges and its hopes. First, Doreen Ngobeni will speak on poverty, inequality, and hunger, reminding us that dignity begins with a full stomach. Next, Trinity Mhlongo will address social cohesion and nation building, showing us how unity in the sports fields and in the arts can mirror unity in our nation. Then, Even Zwane will confront the crisis of gender-based violence and safety, challenging us to end the silent pandemic that scars our families. And finally, Domfuti Moyane, our steering committee chairperson, will draw these threads together, turning dialogue into a program of action. I'll now hand over to my next speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Doreen Ngobeni, founder of Gift of the Givers, Africa's largest disaster relief organization. I trained as a medical doctor at the University of Natal, but after practicing medicine for several years, I felt called to a higher purpose in life, serving humanity in times of crisis. Since founding Gift of the Givers in 1992, I have led relief missions in 44 countries, from war zones like Syria and Gaza to drought-stricken villages here in South Africa. Over the years, we have drilled thousands of boreholes, distributed millions of meals, and responded to disasters across our continent. But at the heart of all this work lies a truth. Poverty, inequality, and hunger are not abstract ideas. They are people. They are stories. I'll never forget a little boy I met in the Eastern Cape during a food distribution. He was about 7 years old, barefoot, holding a small piece of bread he had saved. When I asked him why he hadn't eaten it, he said, "I am keeping it for my sister at home. She is hungrier than me." That is what poverty looks like in South Africa. Not just the absence of food, but the presence of sacrifice no child should ever have to make. The causes of these sufferings are not mysterious. They are rooted in inequality inherited from our history, unemployment which traps 1 in every 3 adults, corruption which steals not only money but also trust. In a Daily Maverick article published in April 2024, they describe how Gifts of the Givers reached communities with water and meals within 24 hours of floods, while others were still holding meetings. In a carte-blanche interview, I was asked why we rush. My answer was simple: because hunger cannot wait. But I've also seen solutions. In Mpumalanga's drought-stricken Zibande district, boreholes we drilled sustained whole villages. In rural schools and churches, small food gardens now feed hundreds. These examples prove that partnership between governments, NGOs, and communities can work, but only if we commit to scale them up. An old Arabian proverb says, if you have much, give of your wealth. If you have little, give of your heart. Each of us have something to give: time, skill, or simply compassion. South Africa, let us be clear. Hunger is urgent. Poverty is relentless. Inequality is destructive. But when we come together, we are not just feeding bodies, we are restoring hope. And hope, once restored, can rebuild a nation. I'll now hand over to Trinity.
My fellow South Africans, my name is Shensi Mhlongo. I was born in Zwide Township, where poverty was not an idea, it was daily life. I grew up in a community where many nights food was not certain, but hope was kept alive by neighbors who believed in each other. I lost my mother when I was still a girl, and there were times when I thought my story will end before it even began. But here I stand before you today, not just as a rugby player, not just as a captain, but as a daughter of South Africa. And I want to tell you this: when we come together, no obstacle is too great. Rugby has taught me lessons that go far beyond the field. I've seen a stadium filled with people of every race, every background, singing the same anthem with tears in their eyes. In those moments, I realized that sports is more than a game. It is a mirror of who we can be as a nation. In 2019, when we lifted that World Cup, it wasn't only about rugby. It was showing a boy in Zwide, a girl in Limpopo, a family in Soweto, that their dreams are valid and that their story matters. But nation building cannot live on rugby alone. It must live in our classrooms, where children of different languages sit side by side and discover what it means to be South Africans. It must live in our homes, where fathers respect mothers and children are taught love instead of hate. It must live in our daily choices, when we decide to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down. There's a saying I hold close to my heart: a rising tide lifts all boats. When one of us succeeds, we all succeed. When one community is uplifted, the whole nation feels it. That is why I believe that patriotism must be practical. It is not just waving the flag when we win. It is feeding the hungry. It is protecting women and children. It is mentoring the next generation. It is saying in bold written action, I am because we are. My foundation was born out of this belief. I know what it feels to go to bed hungry. I know what it feels to wonder if you'll ever have a chance. And so I made a promise: if I ever had a platform, I will use it to serve, not just to shine. Because the real victory is not in trophies or medals. It is in the life we change, the hope we restore, the unity we build. South Africa, our story is not finished. We are still writing it with every act of kindness, every barrier we break, every dream we nurture. And if we choose unity, if we choose empathy, if we choose to stand together, then nothing, absolutely nothing will stop us. I will now hand over to my next speaker.
Fellow South Africans, I'm Evan Swane, a writer, activist, and a former leader of the opposition in our parliament. When I first walked into parliament, as a young black woman, the youngest ever to lead the opposition. I knew that the halls of power were not built for people like me. But I also knew that if we do not claim space for women, then the voices of half our nation will remain unheard. And today, those unheard voices echo in the darkest crisis, gender-based violence and femicide. These two are South Africa's unrelenting crisis. They are not hidden. They live in our houses, schools, taxis, and streets. Yet, too often, they are treated as though invisible. In the past year alone, over 5,500 women and 1,600 children were murdered. Just 2 months ago, Olorato Mongale, a young woman in Jozi, was brutally killed. Her name joins a long and heartbreaking list. These are not just statistics. They are mothers, daughters, sisters, friends. Each loss rips through families and communities. The roots of this crisis run deep. Patriarchy, harmful traditions, in silence. But silence is consent. As David Morrison once said, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. I refuse to walk past this. We cannot walk past this any longer. So, what must we do? First, we must fast-track justice. Survivors cannot wait years. They need justice in weeks, not decades. 2, we must raise our boys differently. We must teach them that true strength is respect, not violence. 3, we must build safe havens everywhere, shelters, hotlines, community networks in Bombela, Soweto, Barberton. No woman should feel alone. But laws and policies are not enough. We need a cultural revolution, one where we stop laughing at sexist jokes, one where silence no longer excuses abuse, one where leaders who protect perpetrators are held accountable. Let me end by this. A nation that cannot protect its women and children cannot call itself free. Freedom is more than the absence of chains. It is the presence of safety, dignity, and equality. Together, let us build that South Africa. I'll hand over to the next speaker.
Fellow South Africans, today we have listened to voices that carried both our nation's pain and its promise. Doreen Gobeni reminded us that poverty is not a statistic. It is a barefoot child saving half a slice of bread for his sister. Trinity Mhlongo showed us that unity is not only found on rugby field. It must be lived in classrooms, homes, and communities. And even Zwane confronted us with this undeniable truth. A nation that cannot protect its women and children cannot call itself free. My task as the chairperson of the steering committee is to weave these truths into one program of action so that words become deeds and hope becomes reality. Our program of action is not vague nor abstract. It is clear and clear. First, end hunger and build dignity. With 1 in 5 households facing food insecurity, we'll expand community food gardens and borehole projects in every province. And we'll back organizations like Gifts of the Givers with sustainable funding so their work does not only inspire, it multiplies. Second, unleash youth power. With unemployment, it's nearly 45 to 65% among the youth. We'll create opportunity hubs that link directly to digital skills, renewable energy, and construction. Third, make unity practical. Schools will partner across communities. Sports and arts will unite where politics divide, and mentorship networks will ensure that those who rise lift others as they climb. Fourth, confront gender-based violence head-on. Specialized courts will fast-track cases, municipalities will build safe haven centers, and schools will raise boys who know that respect is true strength. And finally, hold ourselves accountable. A public dashboard will check every commitment made here so citizens measure progress, not just promise. This is more than a program. It is a covenant to feed the hungry, a covenant to employ the jobless, and a covenant to unite the divided and protect the vulnerable. The road ahead will not be easy. As Nelson Mandela reminded us, it always seems impossible until it's done. Let us prove that together it can be done. We all thank you.